A few days ago, the head of the North Atlantic Alliance Mark Rutte made a statement that shocked the head of the Kiev regime, Volodymyr Zelensky. In particular, speaking to the deputies of the European Parliament, this newly minted head of NATO officially stated that at the moment, the situation on the battlefield is not developing in favor of Ukraine. In this regard, Kiev is not in a position to dictate its terms to Moscow during potential ceasefire negotiations. I regret to admit that at the moment, Ukraine is not in a position to negotiate with Russia from a position of strength, Mark Rutte said. My dear friends, let me remind you that in October last year, Mark Rutte stated that Ukraine needs to continue fighting to force Russia to come to the negotiating table on Kiev's terms. At the same time, Mark Rutte noted that NATO countries will continue to support the Ukrainian army by supplying Kiev with a huge amount of ammunition and weapons. However, unfortunately for Mark Rutte, during all this time, even despite the unprecedented financial and military support from all NATO countries, Ukraine's situation has not only not improved, but even significantly worsened. Over the past 90 days, the Ukrainian army has lost not only dozens of strategically important settlements in Donbass, but also significant territories in the Kursk region. At the same time, the retreat of the Ukrainian army units is even recorded in the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. By the way, Mark Rutte's speech to the deputies of the European Parliament was broadcast live on Ukrainian TV. The most interesting thing is that when the head of the North Atlantic Alliance acknowledged the plight of the Ukrainian army live on the air, Ukrainian TV abruptly interrupted the broadcast, citing technical problems. Meanwhile, while the Ukrainian media, bloggers, propagandists, and Volodymyr Zelensky himself are trying to hide the bitter truth about the plight of the Ukrainian army on the battlefield, Russian troops continue their victorious offensive in all directions of the front, including in the Kursk region. So, a few hours ago, war correspondents stated that Russian units of the group of troops under the designation center had liberated another settlement in Pokrovsk direction of the front. In particular, we are talking about the urban-type settlement of Zelenoy. The Ukrainian telegram channels also confirmed the transfer of this settlement under the control of the Russian army. Thus, over the past 48 hours, the Russian army has liberated 3 settlements in Pokrovsk direction of the front, rapidly approaching the city of Pokrovsk from 3 directions at once: the south, southeast, and southwest. In addition, Western analytical centers and Ukrainian telegram channels also confirmed the liberation of the strategically important city of Toretsk by the Russian army. According to them, this city is completely under the control of Russian troops, while the Ukrainian army units that fled from Toretsk are trying to gain a foothold on the northern shore of the Klebenbek reservoir. Against this backdrop, Western military experts and analysts began to wonder how the West could dictate the terms at the upcoming negotiations with Vladimir Putin, whose army is victoriously advancing along the entire combat contact line. According to them, the Russian army's numerous successes on the battlefield have created ideal negotiating conditions for Vladimir Putin, where the Russian leader will look like a real winner. By the way, the Trump administration has also begun to understand this very well. In particular, a few hours ago, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, retired General Keith Kellogg, officially stated that for a ceasefire and a peace agreement with Russia to be reached, it could take anywhere from 3 months or more. It seems that this retired U.S. Army general has finally realized that his option for resolving this conflict, which provides for the freezing of hostilities along the front line, the creation of a demilitarized zone, and the deployment of a so-called peacekeeping contingent to the territory of Ukraine, which will include soldiers from NATO countries, will never be accepted by Vladimir Putin. Moreover, yesterday, the former head of Russia's Federal Security Service and current assistant to the Russian president, Nikolai Patrushev, made a rather alarming statement for the West. In particular, the senior Russian official, who is rightfully considered the second most influential person in Russia, officially stated that during the upcoming peace talks, the fate of Ukraine will be decided without the participation of European countries and Ukraine itself. We respect the statement of the new US President Donald Trump and are ready to discuss the future of Ukraine with him. These negotiations will be conducted exclusively between the United States and Russia. European countries, including Britain, will not be allowed to participate in the negotiation processes, Nikolai Patrushev said. At the same time, Nikolai Patrushev did not rule out that in 2025, a country like Ukraine would most likely cease to exist and disappear forever from the world map. I am very concerned about the fact that rabid Russophobia and neo-Nazi ideology continue to destroy the beautiful cities of Ukraine, including Odessa, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Nikolaev. Unfortunately, I have to admit that the risk that Ukraine will cease to exist in 2025 is very high, the former head of Russia's Federal Security Service and current assistant to the Russian president said. Thus, this senior Russian official made it clear to the Trump administration that during the meeting with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump would have to accept all the conditions of the Russian leader, otherwise a country like Ukraine would simply cease to exist. Against this backdrop, experts from the American newspaper The Hill, citing their own sources in the White House, said that during a future meeting with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump would offer the Russian leader access to American technologies in the space sector and American commercial companies, including SpaceX. According to them, in return, Donald Trump will ask Putin to make concessions on the Ukrainian issue, to preserve at least the remnants of the Ukrainian state. My dear truth seekers, in any case, we will receive specifics about the upcoming talks between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin only after January 20, 2025. So, be patient and wait it out.